Happy Wednesday morning, everybody. Welcome into another edition of Morning JOX. Conrad Van Orion Mitchell here with you until 7 o'clock, getting you ready for another exciting weekend of college football. If you're an Auburn fan, you're fired up because you know this is your opportunity to prove it, to prove that you have taken that next step and that you need to be taken seriously as a contender in the SEC this year by going and getting what would be an impressive road win over the Oklahoma Sooners up there in Norman. If you're an Alabama fan, maybe you're just happy that you can, sit back for a week and just kind of take everything in and reflect on what's been an interesting first 3 weeks of the season. If you are supportive of the Crimson Tide and you kind of just get to enjoy the weekend and all the games and not have to worry about underperforming or guys loafing on a field. So that's nice if you are on either side of that this upcoming weekend. And of course, there's many other great games that we'll get to over the next couple of days as well. But fortunately, we have some headlines in the college football world that I think are worth discussing, involving a particular quarterback here in the SEC, and then involving someone that's from the state of Alabama, the Pelham area, if I'm not mistaken, who was making some interesting headlines yesterday. And, of course, we're going to talk some more Auburn, Oklahoma as well. I know a lot of people have been, different comments that we've gotten early on in the week from people. Some of you, not buying into the John Mateer hype. Some of you maybe not convinced that Oklahoma is as good as some of us are making them out to be in the media. Some of you convinced that Auburn's doesn't have a chance against Oklahoma this weekend. And I think the answer to that really lies in the middle, where we expect this to be a fantastic game on Saturday. And I think you have an Oklahoma team that has looked very impressive to start the season. And I think Auburn's looked impressive to start the season at the same time. But the reality is, right, we're going to find out a lot about both of these teams coming up this weekend, because I think that you could definitely make an argument that Auburn will be a tougher matchup for Oklahoma than Michigan was. And I certainly think that on the Auburn side of things, Oklahoma is a tougher opponent than Baylor was to open up the season. So a big test and a good marking point for both of these programs getting into SEC play. So we'll spend some time breaking that game down for you here in just a little bit. But we do want to get to what was the big news of the day yesterday in college football, if you missed any of it. And so we'll start off in Nashville, Tennessee. And the reason that we're going to start off in Nashville, Tennessee is because we all remember this last offseason when you had Diego Pavia, who filed his lawsuit against the NCAA asking for another year of eligibility, essentially, so that he could come back this season, the one that we are currently in right now, and get another year of eligibility. Well, he won that, right? He's back as a Vanderbilt quarterback. And so we had all made the joke, right, of, okay, so, how many years is this going to fly, right? Like, how many times is he actually going to try to get an additional year of eligibility? So when the news was announced yesterday by Sam Ehrlich, who is a professor at Boise State, and he is a sports law writer, so that's what he covers, is sports law. He had reported that Diego Pavia's attorney was going to challenge the NCAA and file another lawsuit looking for a 7th year of eligibility, which would mean he could come back in 2026 and play college football, to which many of us rolled our eyes. I think you were in that same boat, Damien, where you're just kind of looking around going, look, I like Diego Pavia. I think he's good for the sport of college football. I really do. He's obviously been great for Vanderbilt. But you got to know when enough is enough, and we can't – you got to enter the real world at some point. Right. And I think a lot of people just kind of looked at this and went, oh, my God, I can't believe we're actually going to have to not only we're going to have to deal with this guy again because he's pretty tough out in SEC play, but also just, all right, if this happened, then it opened the floodgate for every player in college football to go for that 7th year of eligibility, which we already, I think, can agree it's absurd. I think 5 is enough, right? You get a redshirt year if you want it, and you got 4 years of playing time. Think we can all agree that that's enough.
And there's an age, too. He's 24 years old.
Correct.
If he plays next season,
he's no Brandon Whedon, but
right. Like, there's a such thing as grown man strength. There's grown man, knowledge. And again, those are young guys that he's going to be playing against, with the youngins like Ryan Williams and Jeremiah Smith. I just think there's a generational and a talent gap in that mix. But at some point you gotta start to learn to fill out those W-2s. So hey, I'm with you. Great for college football. It's been exciting. It's been entertaining. He's given Vanderbilt new blood. But it's time to be, a graduate assistant would be just fine. A quarterback's coach would be just fine. But as a player, I think that time is up.
Well, here's the good news, Damian. He will not be coming back in 2026. This is going to be it for one Diego Pavia, because after this news was reported by a number of different sites that kind of took it from Ehrlich and then began distributing it out, he replied to a post by On3 Sports on Twitter last night, and it is a cap emoji, which, if you don't know what it means that it's a lie. And he says, "This is my last year." So Diego Pavia confirming he's not going to go and file a lawsuit, try to get that 7th year of eligibility. This will be it. This will be it for the Vanderbilt quarterback. This is his last hurrah. And what a start they're off to, right? With that 31-7 drubbing of South Carolina over the weekend. And we will see if they are able to upset the likes of Alabama, Auburn once again. I think, and I've seen a lot of people going towards this. I'm just saying, I think right now that Vanderbilt-Texas game is interesting. If you don't remember, that was a game that Texas only won by 3 points last year. So I think that's another one that a lot of people are going to have circled. But just wanted to clear that up because I know a lot of people yesterday were not super happy with that news. And, oh, no, what is this going to mean for the future of college football? But at least in this situation, we don't have to worry about that because Diego Pavia is not going to go down that route. And he is going to take his farewell tour this year with the Commodores. So that was one of the two big headlines in the world of college football yesterday. There was another one, though, involving a coach that a lot of us are going to be very, very familiar with. That would be one Dabo Swinney at Clemson. And I'm going to use, I'm really sorry for this, but I'm going to use, I guess this is a Gen Z term, but this is Dabo Swinney crashing out when, again, they're 1-2 to start the season. They almost lost to Troy. That you could very well be 0-3 if the ball bounces a different way a couple of times for the Clemson Tigers. But this was him yesterday at his press conference addressing the media and maybe just getting some things off of his chest, some frustrations with the struggles of Clemson so far and reminding them how good he has been to them.
If they want me gone, if they tired of winning, they can send me on their way because that's all we've done is win. So if they tired of winning, we've won this league 8 out of the last 10 years. Is that not good? I'm just asking, is that good? I don't know if that's good or not. To win your league 8 out of 10 years, to go to the playoffs 7 out of 10 years, to be in 4 national championships, win it twice. Yeah, we're a little down right now. Take your shots, but I got a long memory, in case y'all don't know. We'll be all right. We'll bounce back. This is a program built to last. Always has been. Always will be. And I would just say if you give up on us if you don't believe in us because we've lost 2 games down to the last straight and you didn't believe in us anyway, so it don't matter. You wasn't all in anyway. If you're all in, you burn the ships, man. There ain't no exit strategy. Like, you're freaking all in. And hey, listen, I mean, if Clemson's tired of winning, they send me on my way, but I'm gonna go somewhere else and coach. I ain't going to the beach. Hell, I'm 55. I got a long way to go. Y'all gonna have to deal with me for a while. I got a long way to go. I'm just getting going. I'm just now good enough to be a head coach.
So, I mean, obviously, yes, a lot of things he's saying there are correct, right? He has done a lot of things for that program. They've had a lot of success under his watch. And, I mean, there was that point in, the middle 2010s where, you could have made the argument that they were the best program in college football for a while, even ahead of Alabama and Georgia for a few years. But that's not the case anymore. And so obviously a lot of people were not happy with some of those comments yesterday. And again, it's just with Dabo, nobody's doubting what you've done for the Clemson program, and you had a fantastic run. I think the frustration that you have to have the self-awareness to understand why people are upset now, why the fan base is upset now, doesn't look like you're going to make the playoffs this year. I mean, maybe they bounce back and go and win 8 games in a row here, 9 games in a row, and find themselves in the playoff, but that doesn't look very likely. So if you don't make the playoffs this year, you will have made the playoffs one time in the last 5 years. So it will have been last year. And you snuck in through the back door because SMU choked in a conference championship game. and then you lost to Texas in the first round. All right. Now, since winning the national championship in 2018, which to their credit, they absolutely demolished Tua and Alabama in that game. I mean, it was embarrassing. They smoked them. But since then, all right, they made it back to the national championship game in 2019, lost by 17 to LSU and Joe Burrow. Then the next year, they made it back to the playoffs, lost to Ohio State by 21. Then they didn't make the playoffs for 3 straight seasons. And then they made it last year, and they lost by 14 points to Texas. I think that is part of what the frustration is from the fan base. It is, and again, I'm not saying that that's bad, right? Because for a lot of programs, that would be a great track record, a great streak of success there that you made the playoff that many times over the last 7 years or so. But you won 2 national championships in a short period of time in that program. You played in 4 national championships in a 5-year period. And now you've made the playoffs once in the last 5 years. And maybe it's not fair, and in his mind it's not fair, but that is the standard that you brought to that program, and you deserve credit for that, right? Because you did that. But you now have to live up to that standard that you set at that program. And so when you have a team or a fan base that has expected to compete at the highest level, and they haven't for the last couple of years, and you add in the fact that you haven't embraced the transfer portal, and you've kind of failed to adopt this new model of college football, people are going to start to get worried, and rightfully so. And especially when you have a year like this where you're loaded at wide receiver, you had what we thought was one of the 2 or 3 best quarterbacks in the entire country coming back. You're supposed to have one of the 2 or 3 best defenses in the country, and the defenses looked pretty solid, to be fair, but you have somehow had such a massive regression on the offensive side of the ball that they can't hold a candle to last year's team right now. And rightfully, people are going to want answers for that. So I understand if you're Dabo, it's the same thing with Brian Kelly the other day. You're frustrated. You're like, man, we just won a game in SEC play. Why are people complaining? But that is the expectation. That's why you coach at LSU. That's why you want to stay at Clemson and be the coach there, right? It's because that is the standard. And I don't think that when you're not meeting up to the standard, I don't think that the best route is to necessarily go the Brian Kelly route of ripping into a reporter for asking a legitimate question about why your program's struggling, or Dabo, instead of standing up there and saying, this is what we're doing wrong and this is how we're going to fix it, you go, well, I guess y'all don't like winning anymore because this is all the winning I've done. Well, why are you not winning right now, coach? That's why people are upset. They're not upset because you won national championships for them. They're upset because you've won your whole career and now you're not winning, and you're showing that you cannot keep up in today's age of college football. That's why people are upset. And if you can't recognize that, then that's a self-awareness problem on your behalf. That's why I think people are upset with Dabo Swinney, and rightfully so.
Yeah, it's the double down on deflection. It's the one time you could just say, hey, I'm struggling as a head coach. We need to fix these things, need to iron some things out. But you decided to hit look at what I've done since I've been here. So why would you, why is my name on the hot seat? Or not necessarily on the hot seat, but why am I, public enemy number 1? Well, because you're the head coach of this football program, and you are the calling card. You're the voice of what is happening on the football field. Mm-hmm. And right now the facts are you're 1-2, and you're lucky to be 1-2. And like you said, with everything that you've returned and the expectations going into the season, yeah, the Clemson fan base is like, hey, coach, what's going on? What happened during fall camp? What's going on? Why does this team not reflect everything that you have done? And yet he's going back to just say, well, this is what I've done since I've been here. I get what he's saying as far as don't burn the ships, like go and burning the ships, and you're either all in or you're not. Well, that's different if you're talking to the locker room, but the fan base, they're not there every day. But all they know is the results on Saturdays. And for 3 games during the season, since the season started, it hasn't looked like it has been in the past. So instead of deflecting, I think this is one of those times he could have done some damage control and kind of gotten back into the good graces of just, hey, we're a little bit of adversity starting off the season, but I know this program, I know this team because of what we've done in the past. I feel as though we should be confident moving forward because we can get this thing corrected. So there's ways he could have ironed this thing out, but I think the total deflection and look at my resume was not the best approach.
No, I would certainly agree with that. And it doesn't. I mean, and I don't know how he looks at this or if he's even aware of this, but it's also just he has a reputation to be kind of a corny dude. And so this kind of stuff doesn't really, I guess, help with a lot of that. But a couple of you chiming in on the courtesy GMC text line 205-834-9450. This one says Coach Sweeney is a victim of his own success. Yeah, I mean, that's basically what I was saying is the standard is what the standard is because of you, but I mean, that's kind of the point, right? Is you want to raise the standard, and then your job is to keep it there and maintain that success. And it just hasn't kind of gone according to plan. But yeah, I think that's a perfect way to summarize it. And then this one says, I might be crazy, but I think if Dabo, if he was to leave or get fired by Clemson, who's going to want to hire him right now in today's college football? He doesn't believe in the transfer portal. How's he going to field a team? I will be the first to say this. Now, do I think that some bigger or programs would potentially be hesitant or need him to double down on, yes, I'm going to go all in on the portal or I'm going to embrace the portal? Yeah, I think that would help. But I mean, he's won multiple national championships. This guy will have a job in college football as long as he wants. That's just the reality. Because there's very few people. I'm sorry, but if Kalen DeBoer can lose to Florida State in week 1 and Jimbo Fisher's on a hot board for Alabama, yeah, give me Dabo Sweeney every day of the week over Jimbo Fisher. No doubt about it. But appreciate y'all chiming in. We'll get to some more of your text on the courtesy GMC text line throughout the show. But that was just some of the headlines with Diego Pavi and Dabo Sweeney from yesterday around the college football world. We are still going to break down Auburn and Oklahoma for you coming up a little bit later in the program. But before we get there, we've spent a lot of time talking about how disappointing some of the hyped up quarterbacks have been, the Arch Mannings, the DJ Lagways of the world that just haven't quite lived up to that standard so far. So that means probably cleared the path for a lot of other guys to enter their name into the Heisman race. And now that we're a quarter of the way through, to look like, are there any Alabama or Auburn representatives? Who's the favorite in the clubhouse right now? We'll take a look at some updated Heisman odds for the 2025 season and continue look next on Morning JOX. Welcome back into Morning JOX, 622 here on your Wednesday morning. Appreciate you making us a part of your morning each and every day right here on JOX. Conrad and Damian getting you set for another exciting weekend of college football as we are going to turn our attention to the Heisman race now that we are a quarter of the way through the season, and a lot of the names that you would have had in the running for the Heisman, because there's been a lot of disappointment so far. It's been just such an insane start to the college football season. So who has risen to the top and who has completely fallen off of contention, at least for right now. So these odds are coming from BetMGM. So these are going to be your, let's see, we have 14 players here, I believe, and all of these players are going to have 2,000 plus 2,000 odds or better to win the Heisman Trophy this year. So we'll start at the top. Not a big surprise here. Number one, or the leader in the clubhouse right now with the best odds to win the Heisman Trophy this year, Carson Beck, Miami quarterback. He's been excellent. There's absolutely no doubt about it. He's been excellent for Miami. He's completing almost 80% of his passes, 79% completion rate.
That's pretty efficient.
That is fantastic. So yeah, he's the leader right now, which is, again, it's just kind of funny because it's like, man, did everybody that hyped up Carson Beck last year, we were just ahead, like a year ahead of schedule, right?
Just a little early.
Who would have thought that he'd be better off in Miami than Georgia, right? With the talent that he would have around him. But Miami is certainly making him happy right now. So Carson Beck's at the top. And second right now at plus 900, John Mateer, Oklahoma quarterback. So we, according to some people, are glazing him and making him seem like he's better than he is. But no, he's pretty good. Now he's going to have to answer the bell this weekend, but pretty good player. After John Mateer at plus 1,100, you have Dante Moore, Oregon quarterback. Makes sense. Plus 1,200 after him is Gunnar Stockton. I think his stock certainly, no pun intended, but his stock is on the rise after the Tennessee performance.
Absolutely.
Yeah. After that, you've got a lot of SEC quarterbacks here. So these are all plus 1,500, and you have Garrett Nussmeier, Marcel Reed, and Joey Aguilar. That's your next group. All three SEC quarterbacks right there at plus 1,500. Then right after that, you've got a pair of Buckeyes at plus 1,600, Jeremiah Smith, and at plus 1,700, Julian Sand, the quarterback. And then how about this collection of guys at plus 2,000? We got 5 quarterbacks in this group. Devin Dampier, Utah quarterback, excellent player. Very, very good player. Jaden Maeva, the USC quarterback, he's been excellent. He has the best passer rating in the country right now. And then the final 3. All right, so again, these are all at plus 2,000. They all have the same odds, just behind Julian Sand. Tommy Castellanos.
You're familiar with him, Conrad?
Oh, yeah. Nice little player there for Florida State. You also have Ty Simpson.
You're familiar with him as well, Conrad.
Uh-huh. And Jackson Arnold.
There we go.
So you have the Auburn, the Alabama, and the Florida State quarterback all tied with plus 2,000, or that's where their odds are to win the Heisman Trophy. So based on, I mean, if we're just going down the list, you would say that they're all tied for the 10th best odds right now, at least according to BetMGM, on who's going to take home the Heisman Trophy. I think that's a pretty good spot to be in, especially, I mean, considering, first off, I think after week 1, nobody thought Ty Simpson's name would be anywhere near the Heisman race this season, and he's worked his way back up there. I think Tommy Castellanos should be much higher, and I mean, I'll be completely honest with you. I think he should be in the top 5, if not the top 3.
He should definitely be in there before you put Marcel Reed in.
Yeah,
and again,
he'd be ahead of Nussmeier and Stockton for me right now.
Right,
yeah.
Like no disrespect to Marcel Reed or Gunnar Stockton. It's, you know, at least Gunnar Stockton can say he's played the top tier level and look good while doing it. Not to say Marcel Reed wasn't great against Notre Dame, but he still completed less than 50%,
like 45% of his passes.
Game. Yeah. And again, no disrespect. I'm not there as saying he's a Heisman Trophy candidate, but he's definitely changed my perception of him through 3 games in this season.
Yeah, no, there's absolutely no doubt about it. So I just thought that'd be fun to kind of go in and give an update on that, what we're looking at right now in terms of the Heisman race, because you're going to see, if you're an Alabama or Auburn fan, you're going to see a lot of these guys.
And also Garrett Nussmeier. Like, let's let's really look at his 3 games compared to the rest of those quarterbacks' 3 games. He's not putting up Heisman Trophy numbers.
No, he's getting the benefit of the doubt right now. They're
Right.
going to turn it around, and
Yeah.
yeah.
That's when you talk about your name holding a little weight. He's the example because there's no discussion of Garrett Nussmeier being in the Heisman Trophy race at this point.
No, right. I mean, he's played worse than every other guy I just listed
By far.
as this season has gone so far. But I totally agree with what you're saying. I will say this: if I were to give one of those guys the benefit of the doubt that has struggled early on in the year, it would be Garrett Nussmeier that they would figure that offense out.
Yeah.
So we'll see maybe a little value there if you're a believer in LSU and that offense turning around. But Carson Beck, currently your Heisman favorite, John Mateer, the Oklahoma QB, right behind him. And then how about that? Jackson Arnold and Ty Simpson tied with the 10th best odds to take home the Heisman Trophy now as we head into week 4 of the season. What a season it has been so far. So speaking of John Mateer and Jackson Arnold, they're going to face off this weekend in Norman, Oklahoma, as Auburn will travel up there for their SEC opener. And it'll be Oklahoma's SEC opener as well, their second year now in the conference. Where do we think Auburn has edge in this matchup? How do we think the Tigers match up? We're going to go down position group by position group. Where do we think Auburn has an advantage, and what can be the keys to success on the road in a massive Auburn Tigers, their chance to prove to everyone that they deserve to be in that playoff conversation and in that SEC title race conversation after week 4? We'll dive into that game next on Morning JOX. 6:33 here on your Wednesday morning. Conrad and Damian with you on Morning JOX. About to break down this Auburn-Oklahoma matchup coming up in Norman. Tell you where we see the advantage for the Auburn Tigers as they head up to Norman to open up SEC play and what will be a top 25 matchup and a big opportunity, the biggest opportunity, at least so far on the season for Auburn to make a big statement and get a big statement victory. So just quickly, we'll go over Oklahoma for you real quick if you haven't been able to watch them. I know a lot of you probably watched the Michigan game, and I mean, let's be honest, you probably didn't watch the other two games because they're playing Temple and Illinois State. But through 3 games, Oklahoma averaging just under 34 points a game offensively. They're averaging over 315 yards a game passing, which is 19th in the country. But they're only averaging 156 yards rushing per game, which is 78th in the country. So John Mateer and the passing game, clearly the focal point of that offense, but you also add in on the rushing attack what they have in the running back room, which we'll get to in a second, but also John Mateer, very good using his legs to scramble, as we've seen early on this season and all last season at Washington State. But you got some nice players there on the outside as well, a little bit of a different look. A little bit of a different look than what you had last year. You got Deion Burks, who is got 225 yards. He's their leader in terms of receptions. You have Isaiah Satania. A lot of you might remember him from Arkansas last year. He's a nice player as well. But the leading receiver, at least in yards for Oklahoma, is actually their tight end, Jaron Kanek. So he has 14 grabs for 245 yards. He's averaging almost 18 yards a catch there for the Sooners. So he's certainly a big focal point of their offense as well. And I know a lot of you have asked about this, and we touched on a little bit yesterday, just kind of filling you in on some of the new pieces there. But the offensive line for Oklahoma is certainly a little bit of a concern right now because you have their starting center. We just found out he's going to be out for the rest of the season. So he's a team captain. He's their starting center. He banged up his knee in practice this week, and so he is out for the rest of the season. You also have a situation where at left tackle, your starter coming into the year has gotten banged up, and so you're now starting a true freshman at left tackle. So that's another situation that you're having to work through there. The good thing is, at least at center, you're able to fill in with what's his name, Makula, he started at Stanford last. So you have a guy that has power experience, right, as a starting center to help you out a little bit if you're Oklahoma, but still a couple guys banged up on the offensive line. Certainly not what you want to see. And then how about the running back room for the Sooners? You have true freshman Torrey Blaylock, who has led the way for the Sooners. He had over 100 yards, a couple of touchdowns against Temple, was named the SEC Freshman of the Week this past weekend. And he's leading the way now for the Sooners. After they got Jaden Ott out of the transfer portal, you thought that was going to be the guy. He has 9 carries for 17 yards this season because Blaylock, the true freshman, has been fantastic for them. So that's a little bit of what you've got to look to if you are an Auburn fan just wondering for a little bit of a scouting report on Oklahoma and what they have and what they bring to the table offensively. And then, of course, defensively, as we shared yesterday, statistically, they have allowed the least points per game and the least yards per game in the SEC. So they are going to be a stiff challenge for the Auburn Tigers. But I want to get your thoughts on this, Damian, and, of course, yours as well on the courtesy GMC text line 205-834-9450. So I just took a pass at this, right? I went through and I tried to figure out, all right, who do I think has an advantage at these position groups in Saturday's matchup? And I want to know, you let me know where you agree, where you disagree, and whatever else, whatever other thoughts you may have. All right, so just on paper, I think looking at Auburn, I would say definitively I think they're better at running back than Oklahoma. I think they're better at wide receiver than Oklahoma. And I think they're better at offensive line. I think those were pretty clear cut for me. I think defensive line, you could make a strong argument either way. Now Auburn has more sacks. They've generated 11 sacks. Oklahoma's only generated 7. But Oklahoma's very, very stout on the defensive line. I consider that more of a wash than anything. You can give a slight lean to Auburn if you want to, but they're both very good. And then I think for Oklahoma, right, I think they have a better quarterback. They're better at tight end. And then I think outside of the defensive line, I think linebacker and secondary is better for Oklahoma at this point. And then, like I said, I think defensive line and special teams you would kind of consider a wash because I think they're pretty solid. Both of those teams are in those areas. So I don't know if that's how you kind of see it, or if you see it a little differently than that. But I think clearly you have to feel good if you're Auburn about your ability to run the football, whether that's with Jeremiah Cobb, whether that's with Damari Alston, if he's able to come back, obviously with Jackson Arnold, what he can do with his legs. And I think you have to feel if Jackson Arnold is more comfortable throwing the football, you have an advantage on the outside as well with obviously Coleman and Singleton and some of those guys, even though I know Eric Singleton has been a little bit banged up. But I think they're offensively for Auburn, you're in pretty good shape. It's just going to be defensively, are you going to be able to keep Oklahoma in check to where this game is, more of a back and forth as opposed to, John Mateer doing what Sawyer Robertson did in week 1 and throwing for 400 plus.
Yeah, no, I think you hit the nail right on the head. I agree with everything that you said. And I think the biggest question mark is going to be the battle in the secondary with Oklahoma receivers and Auburn secondary because of the fact that I would say collectively that's the weakest group. When you look at Auburn just as a whole. If you have any question marks, I think the offensive line is gelling exceptionally well. The running back room is just fine, even with some of the injuries that you've had. But I do think that the secondary for Auburn is the biggest question mark. And again, you weren't necessarily attacked through the air by South Alabama just off of design, but they still found a way to, get some yards through the air.
Mm-hmm.
Ball State was absolutely trash. But then the Sawyer Robertson game to start the season off, it does leave kind of a stain because of the fact that he was able to throw as many yards as he did. And now you're going against John Mateer, who, and again, no disrespect to Sawyer Robertson, but I think John Mateer is a better quarterback than Sawyer Robertson. So what is your plan of attack going to be? How are you going to muddy it up? Do you want to add more? Do you want to bring more pressure? But the difference between John Mateer and Sawyer Robertson is John Mateer's got some juice with his legs as well because he's a dual threat guy. But I do think the similar way with Auburn on the offensive side of the ball. To me, I went back and watched last year's game, and for as much hell as we give Peyton Thorne, the one mistake he made was the biggest mistake, and it was. I think that,
and you could even say that was Hugh Freeze's mistake because why are you throwing the football in that situation?
True, and right? I think for Auburn, if you find a way to stick to the game plan, if you find yourself having success on the ground, very similar to what your attack was against Baylor. Don't bang your head against the wall. If it ain't broke, do not fix it. There's nothing to fix because I do think Jeremiah Cobb is a quality running back. If you do have Damari Alston back at 100% or near 100%, you need to make the run game effective because one thing you need to do or you would look forward to do is limiting the possessions that you have for John Mateer and that offense because of their quick strike ability and the fact that they can score a lot of points. I don't think Auburn wants to make this a track meet because it doesn't necessarily lean in your favor. Now, you do have the weapons, but then you're putting the ball in Jackson Arnold's hands, and there's a reason why he's there at Auburn. Because of the fact that he didn't have the success at Oklahoma. And again, there's a lot of factors that go into it, but decision-making was a lot of that thing. The turnover gene, he had it a little bit. He hasn't turned the ball over since he's been at Auburn, but you don't want to put him in that position, where he has to make all the decisions throughout the game. But I do think that the quarterback position it's going to be an interesting battle between those two. So I do agree with you going position by position. Auburn has the advantages. It's just now how do you exploit that because you do have those advantages?
So I'm curious in your mind of how you maybe see this game playing out a little bit. Okay, so this is what we've gotten from Jackson Arnold. We're not talking about rush, just through the air, right? All right, he had 108 yards against Baylor, 250 Ball State, and 142 last week against South Alabama. Do you think does Jackson Arnold need to throw maybe closer to that 250 or even getting closer to a 300-yard passing game for Auburn to win this game? Or do you think that they can essentially establish the run well enough to where, he can go throw for 130 yards, but maybe add 70 rushing yards or something like that? And that's going to be the way that Auburn can win this football game, or are they going to have to do it more through the air, you think? Because I also think people that's maybe the one thing you're not totally convinced on yet if you're an Auburn fan.
I think Oklahoma's talented enough to stop you running the football. Like I do think that this is definitely the biggest challenge that Auburn's going to have faced defensively.
Yeah.
That if they make you one-dimensional, do you have faith in Jackson Arnold going over, the 250, close to 300 mark without some bad throws mixed in there? Like it's kind of essentially kind of how it was with Peyton Thorne last year. If Oklahoma's going to make you throw the football, can Jackson Arnold make those throws when he needs to? And with the talent that you have at receiver, you're going to need explosive plays. And when you have them, can you hit them? That's kind of how I feel this game is going to play out. I think it'll be a little bit of essentially it's going to be a boxing match where first couple drives you start to see, okay, they're trying to identify, all right, they're not letting us run inside zone, we're not having success in inside zone, let's add an RPO to it, see if it catches them off guard a little bit, can we hit them over the top? And I think that's going to be the battle on both sides, because again, Oklahoma has struggled running the football, but because you have John Mateer back there, it's an added value with his legs and what he has done through the air. He's shown that he's able to throw it to the other team a little bit. Can Auburn secondary take advantage of those opportunities? So I think it's picking and choosing when you go for the explosives, but you have to have them in order to feel confident that your team can actually pull out the victory.
No, that's absolutely going to be a big part of it for Auburn, and I think with Jackson Arnold too. Another thing, because you brought it up earlier, right, is something we saw him have problems with last year, was turning the ball over. A lot of it was fumbles more than interceptions. He hasn't turned the ball over so far this year, right? So is that something? Can you continue on that trend, or do you get into a situation where it's crap? All right, we've got the first turnover, maybe a couple of turnovers of the season, and that kind of puts you behind the eight ball, and then just something you haven't had to overcome yet this season now rears its head, and that causes problems for you. But similarly, we talked about it yesterday. John Mateer's thrown a pick in every game this season. So if you're Auburn, and especially if you're that secondary, maybe you're a little ball hockey on Saturday, and you're saying, all right, like, let's turn this guy over 2 or 3 times, because he clearly has a propensity to make these throws and to see what we can do with it. So going to be a very interesting matchup again this weekend in Norman, as Auburn will travel up there to take on the Oklahoma Sooners. But those are just some of our thoughts on the matchup you have coming in. Some of you sending in your thoughts as well on the courtesy GMC text line, 205-834-945. Early thoughts on that Auburn-Oklahoma game coming up. Also, Larry, see you on the phone. We'll get to you as well when we continue on the Wednesday edition of Morning Jocks. 6:50 here on your Wednesday morning. Conrad Van Order, Damian Mitchell with you for a few more minutes before we have to get some of your thoughts on the Auburn-Oklahoma game coming up this weekend. But first, let's go to Larry, who's been waiting patiently on the phones this morning. Larry, how we doing?
Good morning, gentlemen. Enjoy the show every day. I got a comment and a couple questions.
All right.
I don't think what Dabo said was wrong at all. I mean, before he got to Clemson, seriously, Clemson they were a good team, but they weren't as dominant as they were. And, of course, Dabo's had to lose a number of coaches in his tenure at Clemson, but I don't have any. My little sister graduated with Dabo at Pelham. But in reference to the Auburn game and what y'all said over the radio so far, if I was on, hey, Conrad, we're Bammers. But if they lose, if they've lost their starting center and left tackle, and I think Auburn's front seven is for real, there's no doubt what I would do and play man-to-man and just lock down and go, because they've got a great quarterback, but that's just my opinion. And then also, guys, do y'all really think, and I know this question and everybody's commented about this a million times in regards to the system, but guys, I know what I'm talking about. The young man that was from Mobile, Tank, whatever his last name was, who went to Oregon.
Yes.
Why did he go to Oregon, guys? Y'all know why he went to Oregon. The money. Phil Knight, Nike, whatever. But is it fair in reference to – we know what free agency is, but do y'all think that's fair? Or are they ever going to formulate or figure out a system that's fair and equitable for all universities in NCAA, Division I football? That's my question, and just wanted to throw that out there, guys. Thanks a lot.
Yep, appreciate you, Larry. Always appreciate you listening each and every morning. I mean, that's what they tried to do with the $20.5 million house settlement, or the $20.5 million cap, I guess, that they're supposed to be now on NIL payments, is you can only go over a certain amount. But, there's always going to be schools that maybe prioritize a guy over another guy, and they throw him an extra $200K or something like that, right? Or, let's be honest with, something that Oregon has in their wheelhouse is, hey, maybe we can't offer you more money, but how would you like your own shoe deal? How would you like, they have the ability to offer things that other people can't, thanks to Mr. Knight and Nike. So that's just the reality of it. But yeah, a lot of it is money for these kids. And again, we don't have to like it, but I think we can also, if you're being honest with ourselves, say, if I was 18 years old, I'd probably follow the money in a lot of ways as well. So
it's the haves and the have-nots, man. It's either you got it or you don't.
Yes, you certainly do. And unfortunately, a lot of people aren't going to be able to keep up. So it is just the world that we live in now with college sports. But let's end things today on the Courtesy GMC text line with you, our wonderful listeners here on Morning JOX, because you've chimed in with some thoughts on what's going on this weekend. Let's see. Dave in Hoover says, Clemson's in the same boat as Notre Dame, losing 2 games by very close margins, so it's not like they got blown out, but they do have work to do. And I kind of agree. I don't think Clemson's a bad team, but I do think that Notre Dame, they've lost to better teams, maybe not LSU, but I think they've lost to better teams, and they've looked better. Notre Dame hasn't looked terrible in those games. Clemson at times has looked really, really bad offensively. In these couple of games. I definitely think Texas A&M and Miami are better than Georgia Tech. Love Georgia Tech. Think Brent Kay's doing a great job there, but I think maybe it's just a little bit of difference in terms of who they've played. But hey, Clemson very well could bounce back and have a nice season. Let's see. Goose says Dabo only has 2 championships because he played a G5 schedule to get into the playoff, and he is 1 flag on a pig play away from being a one-time national championship coach. He is Chizik with a little more luck. I'm sorry. If you think Dabo and Gene Chizik are comparable in any way, Dabo, runs circles. I'm sorry. Gene Chizik won a national championship because of one player. Literally one player. I know people are going to say, well, what about Deshaun Watson? Well, what about Trevor Lawrence? I'm just saying, he did it with multiple guys, and I get it. I'm mad. I hated the pig play, too. I still hate Hunter Renfrow, but they didn't call the flag, so he's got 2 national championships. Let's see. I love it. Kirby texting, Auburn 70-0. Then he corrects himself. He says, actually, just 50-0. They're for real, though. All right. Let's see. Aaron in Lincoln says, I think Auburn will be put back in their place with Georgia and will be over 66 the point total with Oklahoma. Okay, so you think they're going to potentially win this weekend, but when they play Georgia, that's not going to